and thanks Hank and LSU for creating this opportunity to let you know what is happening. I believe it's every year. It's happened the last couple of years. I know the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board does a review of what they call low-producing majors. And they classify these low-producing majors by graduation rates. So there's the number of students who graduate with a major or a PhD or master's degree over the period of time. So for all bachelor's degree majors, they look at 25 graduates in a 5-year period. That's the minimum. For master's students, it's 15. And for PhD students, it's 10. Anything under that triggers basically an explanation as to what's happening, why your graduation numbers low, with those kinds of questions. We get those questions sent to the provost, to the coordinating board. The provost sends them to the college, and we send them to the chairs. And the chairs then provide information. Sometimes the coordinating board's information is not correct. And we get, therefore the chairs have an opportunity to correct the information they have. And we put that in our reply document that gets sent back to the coordinating board. They will then actually come back and ask for clarification sometimes, at least they did this year, on certain issues. So for example, they sent us a report that said Mexican-American Studies had 0 majors, 0 graduates. They said that's not true, and we should have the data that they'll be able to it was 40 or something in the last 5 years, for a 5-year period. They average about 50 majors, so after over a 5-year period, it's probably 1 year 50.
A little concerned. Coordinating board has 0.
Well, what this is, the reason they had 0 is, and I don't know how this happens, they have a CIP code. There's a CIP code for every major. They had, several years ago, Mexican American Studies created a master's program, and they had the wrong CIP code for the bachelor's degree. So the bachelor's, they pulled up the CIP code, and it showed no graduates. It's because the graduates who were graduating were under a different CIP code. And so we figured that out. They looked it up, and they said, yes, you're right, this was our mistake. And so Mexican American Studies was put under the question. I know Italian, their numbers were not correct, and they corrected the numbers and sent them back. But in the end, their decisions were the following, and some of this you need to understand. They decided to terminate the PhD in Slavic language and literature. That recommendation came from the department. In the first round of information gathered, that's what the department recommended. They said, we want to close our PhD because we believe we can actually create a better one that has a broader focus. That was set forward. Then we had a long conversation with them, and we said, you know what, why don't we ask them to hold off for a year so you create the new PhD first, then close it. But by this time, the coordinating board said, no, we're going to close it. The other was Greek. And the reason they closed the Greek major was that in the last 5 years, there were 0 majors. Be a bachelor's degree.
That raises a further complication. Because our record showed 5 BAs over the 5 years. 4 over the 5 years. But in each case, the students had multiple majors. So a Plant 2 major was counted as a Plant 2 BA, even if, as it were, the subject major turned out to be Greek. And so there's...
I think even if those 4 had gotten in there,
it wouldn't have been...
It wouldn't have. It's been so far below what they want. Now, I want to make sure you understand this. This is the major. It doesn't mean we are no longer teaching Greek. We will continue to teach Greek classes. The students can study Greek language. We just cannot get a major in Greek. Okay. So that needs to be clear. 2 other programs were consolidated. Middle Eastern Studies had actually already started this, and this was part of their proposal as well. They have 4 languages that are less commonly taught languages. They have Arabic, well, I don't know if that was Turkish, Arabic, Hebrew, and Persian at the undergraduate level. And they decided to consolidate these into a Middle Eastern languages and cultures major, as opposed to separate majors. Now, again, that was a project that the department had initiated, and it was in their proposal to the coordinating board as their recommendation. It was accepted by the coordinating board. Slavic also put together documents to consolidate Czech language and Russian languages, which were 2 separate languages majors, and to consolidate them into one, again, what do they call it? BA Russian East European Studies. Okay. So again, those languages will continue to be taught, but they're now, individual majors are going away, and they will be consolidated into these new majors.
What did you say the new major was for the Arabic?
It's Middle Eastern languages and cultures. It should be here. No. Right here.
Okay.
Then, where cases were made by departments that said we have low numbers, we understand that, we still plan to get higher numbers. Based on that information and the numbers that they had, the coordinating board gave either 2 or 4-year exemptions, which means it won't be reviewed again for either 2 or 4 years. And those are there. So the only actions that the coordinating board took in terms of closures was the PhD in Slavic and the BA in Greek. So those 2 programs will close beginning September 2012. Technically, students can still apply for that major, but I believe they're going to phase it out for new students. It's being closed down. Middle Eastern Studies is actually wants us to close out their major at November 1st. So I think that's what we're doing for them. Slavic as well. And then they put a timeline on which students have to finish. It's 2018.
November 1st this year.
Religious Studies has requested that it close down ODEM, Official Declaration of, ODMM, Official Declaration of Major and Minor. They want that shut down for those majors on November 1.
Do you know how many current students are in those programs right now?
Those programs-
I don't have current students. I have how many of the graduates they had in the last 5 years. I don't have the current student numbers.
So whenever you say the projected date that they would have to finish by 2018, which population is that?
That's the students who, any student in those majors. Therefore, any Greek student, any PhD in Slavic, those majors, I mean, they're still there right now. We still have students in them.
Right.
And there's still students in these consolidated majors. So those individual majors are shutting down September 2012 or November 1, as Minister Studies was requested. Those students have to graduate, I believe it's 2018. I have to go back and check. But that's what I think
You
that's
don't
what-
have a number on
I don't know how many students.
So as long as they declare the major before September 2012, so
Correct.
graduate as long as they graduate by 2018.
Correct.
For the November 1st majors, it's closing this year. So do they have to graduate in December or?
No. They had
They
one
still have the
same.
18. Okay.
So now I need to double check that date, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
This is just a grandfather rule then for
Yes, they're
all
grandfathered.
students who are in those.
I'll give you a partial number. There are 4 current students in the Greek major, so they have until 2018 to get their BA.
We're trying to get 4-year graduation rates up. Want those students out.
2018 is kind of a long time, so.
It might actually be, is that what you're, or so, did it say 2018? I don't remember, 2018 is the number I remember, but I don't know if that's the PhD number or the undergraduate major. I'll have to double check. So if one of you who's reporting wants to get back to me tomorrow, I'll
So
look it up.
that's when the catalog expires.
Yeah, but I have to go, I can, see if I have it.
That's what they're saying, is that it was 2015 or 2018, depending on the major.
Okay, if it's a BA, I bet it's 2015. I bet the PhD is 2018. That's what I have.
But if y'all want his information, I can get that to you. Okay.
I think maybe, should I jump in here?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say a bit about the case of Greek as the only BA that's running to Terminator. There's a bit of history to it in that there was originally a department of Greek and Latin Foundation University. And in the, I think it's 1930s, the Greek and Latin department became the department of classical languages. So our Greek and Latin BAs go back to the Foundation University and are related to that. Well, the Department of Classical Languages became the Department of Classics, again, I think in the 50s, at which point we established, my ancestors established a major program which had less of the classical languages, so classical civilization, studying ancient Rome through text and translation. What we have now in 2011 is a Department of Classics with 5 different majors, still the 2 original degrees, then 3 other degrees, all of which now do require Greek and/or Latin, in one case, the Studies of Classics major. He's required to do work, likes to do work in both Greek and Latin. So as Richard was saying, then there's no plan on the books, at least I think anywhere within the 40 acres, and it's 100 acres beyond, to phase out the teaching of ancient Greek to the fullest extent that we teach it right now. It's simply, in one sense, I think this department of classics is going to be considering doing something like what was formerly the Department of Russian and Slavic. It was once called merely Russian. Yes. So there are stages in which programs consolidate and split up as the world changes and as the fields change. Classics hasn't changed much in 500 years, I suppose. So we did change a lot 500 years ago when the Greek texts were brought back into the Western world. Anyway, we're looking at the possibility of the pros and cons of, in effect, restoring the Greek major in a fashion similar to what Richard has described for the Middle Eastern languages. That would be essentially 2 options going forward. One is accepting this, because I gather there is no appeal, accepting the ruling of the Higher Education Board. We will have 4 majors as the same 4 that we have now, minus the 5th, or we will restructure so that within the umbrella title, which will probably include Latin as well as Greek, possibly the classics, which includes both Greek and Latin as its requirements, umbrella major, so that students can still, in effect, have a BA in Greek, just as going forward, students will in effect be able to have a BA in Arabic, even though it's titled Middle Eastern Languages and Cultures.
So, I mean, so you're planning on some sort of a Greek track?
A Greek track within and so I gather, I haven't actually seen the diplomas. I know the number of commencements, but most of the diplomas aren't handed out actually there. But currently a BA will say in Greek.
I don't think the diploma says in Greek.
It doesn't say.
No, just the transcript will tell you.
Yeah.
All it says is Bachelor of Arts.
Who does it? That's a good point of news, because I've heard emotional attachment some of our alumni have to, but my BA was in Greek, and my grandson won't be able to.
Their BA was actually liberal arts, or whatever the college degree was.
Let's see.
But it
That's what it
didn't
should
say
say.
Greek.
So what would be the difference between if you consolidated the Greek and the Latin? What would be the difference between that and a current classics major? Or is there?
The current classics major requires at least 3 years of equivalent 3 years of study in both Greek and Latin. And then some equivalent 4th year work in one or the other. Greek major requires essentially 4 years of work in Greek. Latin major requires 4 years of work in Latin. So if we do, and this is not something we're planning to do, but rather something we're going to explore, one way we might construct it is simply to retain those 4 tracks. So we have a degree in classics, which could be with 4 years of Latin, or 4 years of Greek, or 3 and 4. Well, I've been hearing different terms used: specialization, concentration, focus, for the STAR's office. Manages this.
When I worked at one of the gender studies, I was either a minor, before it was major, a minor, when it was gender studies, or concentration. And concentration had more hours than the minor, so that might be it.
Well, I think that's my take on it, a different system, because here you actually have a major as opposed to a quasi-major.
I think my question is why consolidate? We usually why can't we do that for graduation?
I think they see this as basically,
Does it affect like budget wise or anything, maybe of that sort, or
it can potentially.
also?
Again, I didn't make the decision, so I don't know. if
No,
it's
I'm
other-
not, yeah.
No, I know, so I don't know their total rationale. But if you have a major on the books, that means you have to teach a certain number of courses for those students. And if you don't have a large number of students, you end up teaching a number of courses that potentially are going to have very low enrollments. I mean, because in fact, when I get a report at the beginning of each semester, it's a low enrollment course report. And if a course is required for a major, then I basically need to keep them. I can't cancel them. So an undergraduate course, what's it, during the academic year, 15? Some it's 25. So, I mean, we teach some language courses that, Greek has often been below 10. And so they see this as not a good use of resources. So that's my take. Especially when they're cutting back the university, and we're getting less funding from language major.
Wouldn't that be slightly different with Greek since it like in the classics major requires
We made that argument. The argument was made. The argument was made and they didn't buy it.
so there's no appeal process then?
That's what I
In
understand.
effect, the request for,
Clarification, it's right.
we were asked to
So where do we pick it from here?
Structure it.
don't know where they can. But I think we don't really have any direct information as to why they made this particular decision apart from the general comments. The thought, presumably, is saying if you have faculty teaching small courses that would not be required if they're in a major, then eliminating the major would eliminate faculty positions and save.
Or they would teach other courses that would have larger enrollments. Wouldn't eliminate the faculty.
There is an interesting document, you can go to the Coordinating Board's website and find their back 2000, November 2010 issue, 2009-10 10-11 process. date that sticks in my mind is Governor Perry issued a directive to the coordinating board in September of 2009 to look for cost efficiency. And the coordinating board then undertook through the rest of 2009 and 10, that's really the study of programs for education in the state, ended up with recommendations. One was to reduce the number of majors that are producing low numbers of degrees. And there was a sentence or two in the discussion about this that gives the rationale for moving programs would eventually then reduce the number of faculty positions, which would result in cost savings. I guess current faculty would have to be assigned to their tenure, but suppose you have what was the language that we took off Esperanto program, and you're starting with Esperanto program, it's been running for 4 years. The person teaching that is in tenure track position. No more Esperanto, no more faculty position to teach it. Cost savings. Again, this is what you're saying. In our case, the courses that serve this major, which actually has very few, for as long as we can trace back some 20 years, it's had always very few majors, plus of the option of doing classes. It's 3 plus. All of the courses that serve that major serve all these other 4 majors as well. So it won't be a cost savings as far as we can consider. So this was
Redundant.
But moving forward, it's an early option where you're doing, like you said, look at the possibility of consolidation and concentration degree, and then try to up our Latin so that doesn't have too much.
that's the other side of the story.
So there's no reason.
But
Unless you
the
revamp
major,
it.
no. That I understand, no. I mean, again,
It's already done.
major,
Dead language.
major.
But you
Not-
have
but-
until 2015.
But Greek will continue to be taught.
Okay.
So the classes are there.
Yes.
Correct.
The majors not.
But you can still enroll as a major right now.
Take advantage of it.
Now, it helped, really, I hate to say this, but it's really on the department of students to keep even the Greek language courses alive. Because once the major goes away, they don't really have the protection of the major to keep those courses going. This being, as I do, value language instruction. So we want to keep those. And even languages that are not independent majors, we try to keep on the books when they don't have 10 students in them. But again, without students taking these courses, it's hard to make a case for them.
I was asking today why the rationale for the field that it's not cutting this major isn't going to reduce classes.
We received no interpretation or received no decision.
Unlike the judicial verdict with explanations in court. You're asking about picketing. I think the picketing would be to follow what you just said, would be carrying signs, take Greek, because it is going to be a long-term way. It's possible to revive the Greek program, put a major back on the books if we have student demand, which is to say, if we have students sign up to take that course and move to a major. Frankly, I think that's unrealistic. Further perspective on at least the Greek case, I've talked to people in the Middle Eastern languages and cultures, and he's kind of similar to pursue advanced study in Greek. You really do need to have Latin as well. And so we have, for ages, advised students generally to go for the classics degree unless there are special reasons to do only the Latin or Greek for alternatives. Latin is a stronger alternative because there's a strong tradition of secondary school Latin, and so there's a market for secondary school teachers of Latin. In fact, there's a desperate need for Latin teachers in the state of Texas. That's a need. We have put together, this is again part of our defense for the Latin program, but we don't have a similar defense for the program, but similar that we're serving also higher secondary education throughout the state, as well as higher education.
Do you think there's any way to get them to realize they should be on double majors?
Yes, I had a long debate with them. They understand the limitations and they are working on it.
Because when I spoke with them, they were like, well, unless you took 240 hours, we're not really a double major.
No, they understand the problem. But it's not only a coordinating board problem, it's actually a UT problem. We don't actually have a way to count the majors in the tower. There are, I think, 2 or 3 days out of the year, right when degrees are being certified, when you can actually go in and take a snapshot of majors that captures double majors. That's what I told them. The problem with that is you do this in early January, by April, the data is outdated. Okay. So, but this is something we've been asking central administration to do. And it's not like they're unwilling, it's that at this point they don't have the systems in place to do it.
So central administration for UT.
Right. Because the college has been collecting a lot of information as well as part of our decision making. And the departments keep asking for this, and we said, we're asking for it as well. We just don't have it.
So would they have to create a program?
I don't know what the program is.
So the current count would only take into account students that are solely majors.
What it counts is your primary major. So if you signed up for Greek first, and let's say you signed up for philosophy second, it's going to count Greek and not philosophy. But if you sign up for philosophy first and Greek second, Greek's not going to show up.
You can see why certain programs would be at a disadvantage. Company planning to do something, but that's
Again, when they were trying to double check the information, I was on the phone with them. It's about 3 days that we were on the phone 3 or 4 times during the day. And this was one of the issues that I kept raising. And they understand, they know it. So they said, you can get it to us. But again, Italian was the only one that really had substantial numbers. They weren't below the bar.
Is this like another method for slowly taking out their majors to get the classes?
The method's always been there. Just now they're using it. I don't know if I can read their minds and know what their long-term strategy is. But if you look at what's happening around higher education across the country in general, they are using, they're much more interested in accountability and efficiency measures and performance and productivity. And the number of majors that you graduate is one piece of information they look at very seriously.
So since classics is not up there, but Latin, so you're telling us we should manipulate our data to have Latin as a primary major and classics as a secondary?
I don't recommend any manipulation at all.
No, but I'm just saying, because if someone's a classics major, they just need 3 more classes to be a Latin major, so they usually add it after the fact, but if it's not counting, since it's a secondary.
Well, I think what the department needs to do is to think, do they want to consolidate around Latin and Greek as languages? What would that look like? And make some decisions there.
Because then it would just be the classics program anyway.
Well, no, again, I think Jill was asking that question earlier. Just got 3 versions of the classics major as opposed to the classics major and 2 other majors.
I think that's, well, I know Baylor offers the 3 different ones, but I think that's kind of what their classics is, or you can focus or nutrition.
Often a classics major variety of programs around the country is enormous. We are, I think, unique, but pretty unusual in having diversity of majors. We have 5 majors within our department. So I was starting to say a while ago, that doesn't really have particular advantages for students who are beyond whether to graduate school or into the field they're pursuing. So in a sense, we're simply maintaining the relic of the past. That's why I think, personally, I don't think there's a great loss in the elimination of the major. If there were any threat to teaching Greek, that would be a completely different story.
I kind of feel like it's like a pushing them a little bit with like, okay, now since we have, like you said, it's easier for Greek classes to be canceled. But that wouldn't be the case in some of the classics major also, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's something that we don't have. Okay, that's pretty reasonable.
No, I was just thinking, these temporary exemptions, say Latin, for example, that receive the 2 years temporary exemption, does that mean it's going to be up for,
In 2 years, they'll review it again to look at the numbers.
because it's not a like annual review and say, oh, you have 2 years tops, assuming you make it past the first.
If it,
But again,
no,
that's
in 2
primary,
years, they'll
right?
look at how many students
Yeah.
have graduated over the past 5 years, 2 years hence. And if it's over 25, it's not an issue.
2 years ago, May, I submitted the same request for extension, and both were approved with essentially the same kind of information, although made some changes in those offerings since that initial round. I hear from my predecessors that they also had submitted requests for extensions. What's new is this time the request is turned down. So essentially, have a deal with you.
Budget being tightened and tightened and tightened, it's gonna be like, and so if you're only looking at primary, that's like, because everyone's in classics and then they add on.
They will look at secondary. But like right now, they don't have, they can't capture it, so I think we'll go through that as well.
Do you know when we'll have that major or
I have no idea.
I mean, one way to put this in some perspective would be, I think the number we had was 26, if you count double majors, 26 majors in Latin in the last 2 years, which within 2 years, more than they're expecting in 5 years. But of course, they need not necessarily trust my voice like that without their ability to execute.
They might have 23 originally over 5 years. So you're close.
Exactly.
is that with doubles or singles?
That's with doubles within 2 years.
So if they, with doubles, if we have 23, but if singles, the board had 24.
No.
That's a 5-year period.
Oh, okay. So this was the past 2 years.
Well, I gave them this guidance within 2 years. Update on the previous request.
Like for instance, for you to teach, you have to be certified to teach a lot, you can add Latin on top of that, so when you pass their exit, they can teach Latin, so they might have you teach or something as a primary and like a lot of that would second. Or it's something to have of
Is
education.
there some kind of plan from now until the 2 or 4 year mark to boost student numbers?
In Latin, in particular, well, one of the points we made was that a fairly new program we teach for can both a BA with certification to teach Latin and also an MA with certification to teach Latin, which is not quite as popular, but it does service mainly the same clientele as a student who ends up in a BA but without certification can then continue here. It usually does take a full 2 years to get the MA. It would be possible to do it in a year and a half to get certification with that. So that's one way in which both we have new options for students looking for Latin career. There are that many students looking for that, but at the same time, it's serving what is really in the state. So I'd like to think that
also a lot of interest in volunteering at local high schools. We have one program that I'm involved with that sends Latin majors over to Austin High School, and we teach advanced Latin students because they'd all been clustered into one classroom with one teacher, and it wasn't working at all, so we were basically kind of taking the slack in those areas. And we hope to spread our influence to other schools in the area, particularly AISD, since they're kind of in our backyard, and we recruit from that area. So it started this year, but we're hoping to expand on that.
Is that part of the teacher?
No, that's classes.
State honors. Just organized by the Sigma Phi.
Is there a student group?
It's a student group, we don't really have a name. Last semester, there was the whole issue about cutting Latin programs at AISD, and I sent a couple emails out, and we got a group of people together, and we're basically going at it from there, kind of forming an organization. It's not like an official campus, it's not a Sigma Phi or anything, but there are members based in Sigma Phi who help us.
Any other questions? That's,
For the ones that care.
well, all the other ones are exempted.
Okay, that's true.
With that word, either terminated or consolidated, it was brought up by the department. So
Right.
Slavic literature wanted it.
That was their recommendation.
Yeah.
I have this paper that I got online that has kind of that list, but it says that the Turkish language and literature was approved for consolidation, but that it had 0 graduates in 5 years. Is that correct?
Turkish is going into this Middle Eastern studies.
Okay.
That's one of the ones that's being
Okay.
consolidated. The graduates in 5 years, yes, that's what I have too.
Okay, that's fair.
Czech and Polish there as well, or is it just Czech?
Yes. Well, I was just wondering why if they had 0 graduates, they would be consolidated and not just
Well, because they're creating one major now,
Okay.
and you have all these tracks here. So really, in the end, what's going to count is all these languages counted together as one major. So if Turkish continues 0, it doesn't matter as long as that one major has 25.
Build the major and they will come.
Again, students may be taking Turkish language. They may not be in that major. So you need to differentiate here between students taking the language to satisfy language requirement and the students wanting to take that as a major.
So why is not enrollment factored into this though? If there's this problem.
They do look at those numbers as well. And so I actually think they look at both, in my sense. They look at all enrollments and the enrollment majors. Turkish would have been, if Middle Eastern studies had not moved to do this, they would have been shut down.
I mean, it sounds to me kind of like Greek is somewhat consolidated into classics already.
Already,
So I mean,
already.
we just have the scary word of termination. But I mean, they're still offered, it's just consolidated into
But
classics.
if someone's just browsing, like say they're a high school student and they're just trying to like, I want to major in Greek, the only problem is if they don't know what classics is, because a lot of programs don't offer Greek or language, they might overlook us just. That's the only thing.
But if they look at the languages offered, they'll see Greek.
Attention span sometimes, no, they don't offer Greek next, yeah.
I mean, for me, when I, originally thought about Latin, and then I went back to journalism, but for me, I just wanted to go somewhere where I could take Latin. It's the only language I understand other than English. So, I guess maybe if they're like that with Greek, it might help them see that, and then they'll kind of figure out.
Yeah, it's just like with counselors and stuff, sometimes they have like the national database.
Yeah.
And so if it's just listed by degrees, and they don't even know, they just look it up.
In fact, it's something that people like me, that are classics for ages, just have a hard time shifting to classics is such an ancient term, really.
Yeah.
To have a program which is classical languages and cultures. What if that would be precisely the model of Eastern languages and cultures, which I think would, one of its possible advantages would be its all our own language.
Thank you for coming. Any more questions? Hey, is this where you pull out the popcorn and candy?
Popcorn candy. Budget crisis.
You guys are rich.